We've stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. From the courtroom to the classroom, Attorney Karen Jimeno brings sharp legal insight, academic excellence, and a voice that has guided national conversations. Attorney Mike Toledo, a seasoned public affairs strategist and legal mind with years in media, corporate leadership, and government reform. Together, they bring law to life with experience, integrity, and the courage to ask hard questions. Two minds shaped by the law. Two voices trusted in and out of the courtroom. This is ABOGADO.
Good evening. You're watching ABOGADO, where legal minds engage in thoughtful exchange on the most pressing issues of our time. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. In this program, we dissect legal and political questions that shape our society, guided by principle, reason, and respect for differing views.
Tonight, we examine a government initiative that has provided relief to millions, but also sparked debate on its long-term impact. Is it a lifeline for the poor or a band-aid solution that holds us back?
The question at the center of tonight's discussion may just reshape how we view public assistance in the Philippines. And before we hear from our guests, here's the proposition we're discussing tonight.
Once a symbol of care in crisis, government ayuda programs promised to protect the most vulnerable. They fed families, sustained communities, and reminded us no one should be left behind. But years later, are we empowering people or just keeping them afloat? Some say ayuda creates dependence. Others say it's a vital safety net in an unequal system. As we weigh compassion against accountability, reform against removal, we confront a critical question. Should government ayuda programs be discontinued?
Recommending the discontinuation of ayuda programs is Attorney Baby Perian Arcega, a graduate of UP Diliman and San Beda College of Law. She is a former public attorney and now co-founder of the Ibera and Arcega law firm. Known for her strong stance on justice and fairness, Attorney Arcega believes that ending ayuda is a necessary step towards long-term sustainable reform.
Meantime, on the other side of the discussion is Attorney Markova, Kooky, and Inciso, who advocates for the continuation of ayuda programs. She is a seasoned litigator and currently serves as the managing partner of her firm, with past roles in the Department of Labor and Employment and the Supreme Court. Attorney Kooky brings a well-rounded perspective rooted in both law and public service.
Let's take a look at the structure that will guide tonight's discussion.
We begin with the opening statements. First, the speaker supporting the proposition presents their position in a focused 2-minute statement. Then, the speaker challenging the proposition offers their perspective, also within 2 minutes. The conversation then unfolds through 2 key subtopics. For each subtopic, the guest supporting the proposition presents their insights for 2 minutes, followed by a 2-minute perspective from the guest challenging the proposition. After both perspectives have been presented, we move into the open exchange. A 6-minute free-flowing discussion where both guests ask questions, share points, and respond to each other directly. Once both subtopics have been explored, we proceed to closing reflections where each guest is given 2 minutes to summarize their key messages. And finally, the hosts step in with their own questions. In this 6-minute segment, the guests respond, clarify, and deepen the discussion, ensuring no critical point is left unexplored.
Let's begin with the opening statements. The proposition: should government ayuda programs be discontinued? We start with Attorney Arcega. You have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Attorney Toledo. All right,
Let me just begin my position with this Chinese proverb. I'm sure you're all aware of this. Give a man a fish and you will feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. Ayuda is necessary to some extent. When there's a calamity, force majeure, anything that will disturb the day-to-day life of people, and they need a genuine lifeline. But other than that, anything beyond that, it's already a, excuse the term, but lazy approach to the real problem of poverty in our country. Last year, I read a news article that I think there was a 500 billion peso allotment for ayuda just last year. So I'm sure that helped hundreds of thousands, probably 1 million or so Filipinos for a week, for a month, or for several months. But at the end of the year, these people are still hungry, they're still jobless, and they're still in need, they're still poor. So I believe, again, to some extent we need it. There's a kind of ayuda that is necessary, but all the rest, I believe it should be abolished. Contrary to what it's supposed to be, it's anti-poor, because you allow or you keep poor in their status. The poor people are still poor. They do not encourage development. Intergenerational poverty does not end by an ayuda system. And it's a gateway to corruption, which I'm sure we see politicians taking advantage of this system for their own personal and political gain. So let's just abolish it. Let's focus on development that will provide sustainable, good education, quality education, more job opportunities. The 500 billion last year, let's put it there. And let's see how the country improves over time.
Thank you so much, Attorney Arcega. Attorney Inciso, we'll turn to you, and you have 2 minutes.
Starts now. Okay. I would imagine a mother holding. I would imagine a mother standing in a line, clutching a tattered ID, falling in line under the scorching heat of the sun. It's not for herself, actually. It's for her children who badly needs support and sustenance and food for that day, to be able to go to school, to be able to eat. It's a symbol of desperation, actually. And she is not lazy, contrary to what some would say. I think in that scenario, she is being very resilient. And that is what this debate is actually all about. I believe ayudas are not handouts. They are actually a hand held out in times of need, in times of crisis. It's the state's way of saying, we see you, we feel you, and we do not want you to be left behind. So it's the state's way of taking care of the people. Contrary to what others would think, that it is a sign of weakness, actually, in my perspective, it's the state showing how it cares, how it observes compassion, empathy, how it exercises mercy and justice towards those who cannot afford, towards those people who have no means, not because they're lazy. Sometimes it's because they don't have opportunities. They were just perhaps born at the wrong timing or at the wrong sector of the society, not because they're poor, but because they don't have the opportunities. And ayuda is the only way to be able to bridge that gap.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Inciso. Now let's discuss the long-term impact of ayuda on poverty reduction and economic empowerment. Do these programs truly serve as stepping stones out of poverty, or do they risk creating a cycle of dependency?
How effective are they in improving the long-term livelihood of beneficiaries, and can they be restructured to better support job creation, education, or sustainable livelihood? Attorney Arcega, your perspective. 2 minutes, please.
All right, I want to share a personal story to address that. We were very poor growing up. I remember we divide fried egg into two. We are six in the family, 6 siblings, and we divide 2 eggs for everyone. I don't remember my parents going in line to get ayuda. But I remember my mother is a high school teacher. It's a permanent job. High school and the elementary teacher, it was a permanent job. I think her salary is 12,000 pesos. Madaming utang. But we get by because there's a permanent source of income. My father was a carpenter. That's not really a regular source of income, but there's one in the family who expects 12,000 pesos every month. We all graduated. We all contribute now to the society. In one way or another, we are big taxpayers as well. That's sustainable development. That's the help that we need. We need to ensure that people have good quality education. We graduated from public schools, elementary and high school. And we got by, and we now thrive. That's my opinion anyway of our situation. So if we keep doling out money, we are just giving temporary solutions, band-aids. This is not sustainable. Contrary to what my good opposition said, that this is the government saying that we hear you, we see you. No, these are your oppressors. They give you just a little for you to be grateful, for you to be loyal to them, but not too much, because you will be independent. You will thrive and be independent. Not too little, because you will rebel. Just a little bit. So you're grateful, you're loyal. Wake up, people. These are your oppressors, and we do not need to beg from our government.
Very well said, partner. I like how you included, Attorney Arcega, a personal story of yours and how you turned around your situation through hard work. So, Attorney Inciso, your take on this matter. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, okay. So the question is, does it promote long-term livelihood? I believe it does. Actually, let's just base it on facts. And let's not be swayed by our emotions, because we have studies coming from World Bank and the Philippine Institute for Development Studies showing that, for example, 4Ps, or that Pantawid Pamilya Filipino program, has improved or has contributed to the increase of enrollments in public schools, because you see, this ayuda programs, they require children to stay in school, and they require responsible parenthood. They also require health checkups. So it's just not really doled out. I think long-term livelihood would, ayuda should not just be ayuda, but it should be ayuda tied up to something else. It should just be sort of a gateway, in order for those low-income earners just to be able to stabilize and be able to get to the next stage, like, for example, studying or continuously being in school or being able to look for employment until eventually you can thrive, like what Attorney Baby did. So it's a first step. It just ensures that you will be able to survive your daily expenses, your daily needs. After all, it's not really that much. It's just enough for you to be able to survive your daily needs in life.
Okay.
And I think they are going to be effective if, for example, you tie them with some long-term programs of the government like TESDA, and not just really ayuda money, something like that.
Thank you so much, Attorney Inciso. Now, mga compañeras, I'm surrounded by 3 intelligent and, well, I have to say, I hope I don't say anything wrong here, but definitely good-looking lady lawyers, and I'm just lucky to be like that tonight. But really, compañeras, feel free to now respond to each other's points, raise new arguments, or if you want to ask clarifying questions, or like you're like cross-examining someone in court. So
You know what's
please.
interesting, partner? They have faced each other in court before.
I heard, yeah. We will not ask who won.
Yeah.
But
I want to find out later. I ask. But yes, you may now ask each other questions.
yeah, Attorney Karen and I will also just come in at any time. Perhaps we would also would like to ask some follow-up questions. Baka may mga tanong din kami na gusto namin clarify. So, who would like to begin?
I can begin.
Please,
About ayuda being used by politicians. No offense, I don't know who politicians are supporting the ayuda system and who are against it, but this is something that is prevalent. Even now during the election season, this is being used by politicians as a way of campaigning. A 20-year-old person just died in Marikina while in line for ayuda. I cannot help but connect that to some campaign, propaganda. So,
Well, I guess Attorney Inciso, Arcega, later we will be discussing political misuse as a part of our next subtopic. So I'm trying to save you your arguments for that, and we can concentrate on just the possible effects of ayuda when it comes to long-term sustainability, like you mentioned earlier.
okay, so I can probably ask Attorney Kooky, don't you think the 500 billion peso budget for ayuda last year just went to waste, considering that this did not really create permanent jobs for the jobless?
I don't think it was put into waste. Perhaps for people who did not get it, that would be their statement. But if we ask those people who received it, it's something that they hold on to as a hope that they will be able to make ends meet. So that's very anti-poor, I guess. It's somehow also shaming the poor that we are saying that they are just being very dependent on ayuda. But in reality, like what I said earlier, we have studies showing that there has been increased enrollment in the public school because you cannot continue to receive this particular ayuda if you're not in school or you're not reporting or you're not, because these are cash for work. You also need to do something and not just get money out of it. So the middle class perhaps might not really be able to feel it, but if we walk down the streets and ask other people who really took part of it, I'm sure they are very thankful to the government right now.
Well, Attorney Kooky, I'd just like to interject with one point on the types of ayuda programs because they do vary.
Yes.
And I think when you say that there have been correlations with kids being sent to school, that relates to the 4-piece
Yes,
program
4-piece.
where the studies abroad, including by the World Bank, relate to conditional cash transfer
That's right.
programs, which are the equivalent of the 4-piece in the Philippines.
Yes.
So there is a condition for getting that ayuda because you have to send your kids to school for regular checkups. But what about yung mga outright ayuda talaga, like AKAP, yung ayuda para sa Kapos ang Kita program? At least yung AIX kasi, it's for
SWD.
people in crisis situations
Right.
wherein
Hospitalization.
kailangan magpakita ka ng crisis,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Na may na-hospital.
Confinement.
Oo. But yung AKAP kasi parang medyo walang standard na sinusunod. And sa social media, may mga nakikita na may nagpo-post about getting their ayuda at nagpapamanicure or kumakain sa mga fast food soon after getting their ayuda. So, what is your comment on that?
On the misuse of ayuda, no? So, perhaps what we see on social media or stories we hear of, those could be exceptions, but we should not consider those exceptions as the general rule. Perhaps that is where education or informing or proper education should come in on the proper use of the help that they're receiving, the financial help that they're receiving from the government. But just because we have some people who have the tendency to misuse ayuda, we would say that it's true for everyone. So I think that is also not a fair statement, I should say. And it's more on towards being educated on the proper use and not really totally removing it altogether.
Maganda yung sinabi mo, partner, no? Because I'm glad that you raised that, yung conditional cash transfer, yung patawid ba pamilyang Pilipino. Because yun talaga, makikita natin na unang-una tinitignan nila kung sinong dapat makatanggap ng ayuda. Tapos kung nakatanggap sila, they have to follow certain conditions. One of them, kailangan dalhin mo yung mga anak mo sa healthcare. Isa, kailangan naka-enroll sila. Pangatlo, pangapat, may mga reasons, no? So, ang tanong ko sa inyong dalawa, perhaps, whether you're for or against, hindi ba magandang programa ito? Because it encourages, for example, the young parents to make sure their kids go to the health center. Because we all know that the biggest problem in the country now is stunting. Isang malaking problema yan, stunting. Dahil the first 1,000 days of a child's life and the mother's life is very important. You have to have the proper nutrition, the proper nurturing, both physically, mentally, and medically. And yet, nagkakaroon ng problema dyan. And that dominoes, no? Pag may stunting, ibig sabihin, we are raising kids that are not developed mentally and physically. So, ang tanong ko sa inyong dalawa, kung tatanggalin natin totally yung ayuda, would it achieve the objectives that we want to make sure that we have a healthy, intelligent next generation of people? Or should we have something in the middle wherein hindi mo tatanggalin totally because it develops, pag tinanggal mo, pag nandyan ang ayuda forever without any conditions, medicancy, no? Nagiging dependent. So, ano ang sa tingin nyo dapat, what it would be the middle ground? Malapit na rin po yun sa tanong ni Attorney Karen, no? Like the ACAP and the others, yung ba dapat tanggalin at ang iwan na natin yung conditional cash transfer?
Siguro, Attorney Arcega can answer that question.
Yes, from the get-go, I said that there are types of ayuda that are really necessary, especially when there's calamities. I guess for the 4-piece, there's still, the intention is there, good intention is there, but I believe that it's still subject to a lot of abuse. Probably in a lot of, just like many of our problems in the Philippines, implementation is key. So if that's actually implemented, it being conditional, it being the beneficiaries being qualified, then I would agree that that's something that we should keep. But all the rest, we don't need those. I think it's just gearing towards medicancy, being begging the government. So we can do away with everything else.
Quick rebuttal before we go to the next subtopic.
I think we just need to implement it properly. So right now, I believe it is somehow politically driven. But if we institutionalize its implementation, having clear eligibility on who will be entitled to it, making sure that it's data-driven and not personality-driven or politics-driven, those we can ensure that the criteria is based on law and not on favor. Then the DSWD independently, can somehow really do grassroots and check on who are really in need and who should really be receiving allotment or ayuda, and making it more targeted. Having a clear criteria and system for its entitlement, I think, is a better approach.
I think we're preempting our second subtopic, so we should get to that subtopic now. So the next topic, which Attorney Arcega also touched upon earlier, is on accountability, transparency, and the risks of political misuse of ayuda. How do we ensure that ayuda programs truly serve the people and not political interests? Can mechanisms like DSWD's digital payouts and bans on political involvement effectively prevent corruption?
Or partner, do we need deeper legal or institutional reforms to safeguard public funds and uphold public trust? Now, Atty. Arcega, please begin. You have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, I still believe that we can do away with all the other ayudas. There are ways to safeguard the implementation. There are ways to ensure that there's transparency, accountability, and to make sure that there will be no politicizing of these social welfare projects. But the concept itself, again, being loyal to my position here, that it should ayuda system must be abolished. That system itself, we can really do away with it. Rather than trying to fix the problem, can we not agree that the problem itself is giving aid for short-term needs? That budget that we have for ayuda, for people lining up for a kilo of rice, for cans of tuna, of sardines, the budget there can be used for something that's more long-term, something more sustainable. So I will not even go to whether this should be policed in this way or that way, whether this should be, because the entire ayuda system must be abolished, save for those ayuda programs that's necessary during calamities. And yes, I kind of agree on the 4Ps. It really is a helpful way, if we implement it properly. Maybe that's where we can focus our efforts on making sure that people are accountable, it's implemented properly, it's not used for corruption, and the right people get benefits from it, not short term, but for them to have, be filled, their stomachs to be filled so that they can work, they can send their children to school.
Thank you, Attorney Arcega. Attorney Inciso, specifically on transparency and accountability and avoiding political misuse.
Okay, in that respect, I think we have to acknowledge that the standard should be compassion without corruption. So that should be the standard as much as possible. But we can put in place some structural reforms to ensure that we minimize, like for example, making it digital or having an open data platform where people or everybody can access who received the ayuda, when, and how it was given out. And you can also see whether or not you are entitled, the parameters that were set for the entitlement. So we can make it digital, use technology as a tool to make sure proper implementation. I think the SWD is already doing that right now, ensuring that the recipients somehow get it through GCash, so we can really be sure that there was an actual recipient of the ayuda. So we can also perhaps strengthening laws in terms of stronger penal laws for those that for local officials who are going to be found to have abused these programs and making it for their personal interest, perhaps a whistleblower program like what we have right now in BIR, to make sure that those people who are scared of reporting and something like that. So we can think of so many ways on how to curb the corruption that is, or politicizing the programs. We can think of ways on how to somehow reform.
Okay, now let's open the floor again. Again, you can ask each other directly questions. So perhaps at this time, you start first,
Ako
Panyana.
nga maraming gustong tanong but we'll have them start their exchange first. Yeah.
All right. Attorney Baby, my question for you is, isn't part of the Congress or the state's role is to ensure, protect human dignity and somehow minimize inequalities within the society, economic, political, and societal inequalities? So wouldn't you think the state would be amiss on its role of making sure that they have social justice if They do not give ayuda to the people.
All right. There's nothing dignified in lining for food, to get free food. You line up, you're under the heat of the sun for a bag of rice, for sardines, that's not dignified. We should stop normalizing poor people getting in line for food. It's like Jean Valjean days of Les Miserables. It should end. If the government is really concerned in the dignity of its people, provide jobs. Skills must meet opportunities. Skills that's from the people, that's manpower. Opportunities, it's the government's responsibility. Local governments do that. They provide work, they provide people cleaning the streets. That's dignified work. There's dignity in work despite that being menial. But there's really nothing dignified in continuing to just, we are here, there's a truck of ayuda, and you line up, and then people are expected to be grateful. When your morale is that low, would you really still aim for something higher?
Well, I guess beyond also normalizing that ayuda system, what I'm concerned about is the political misuse. So apart from the danger of having this as a form of vote buying, I've interviewed some people where in the local government and even some people in Congress who said that merong mga areas where nagreklamo yung recipients because they don't really receive the full amount of the ayuda, where the distributors from the barangay have a system na kinakaltasan nila. So that, for example, if you're supposed to get 5,000 pesos, gagawin nilang 3,000. Tapos sa kanila yung 2,000. Pero syempre, ipapareceive nila sa'yo. So based on the documents, it looks like it reached the beneficiaries. But of course, for the beneficiaries, ang worry nila is sinasabihan sila, tanggapin mo na yan or baka hindi ka na makaulit. So that's really, for me, a leakage. Like wherein we're spending money as a state, but it doesn't really go fully to the beneficiaries. What do you say to that, Attorney Inciso?
Ito na yung sinasabi mong partner, sinabi mo kanina, compassion without the corruption.
Yeah, exactly. Kaya lang, syempre, that's theoretical, right?
Yes, exactly. Ganon sana.
Can you please answer?
With that scenario, so hindi naman natin yan maitatanggi. And hindi lang naman siguro sa ayuda nagiging problema yan it is being abused by politicians for their personal or vested interest. So that's why we need to somehow introduce stronger, for example, criminal liability for these people who will be proven na kumakat dun sa share ng mga ayuda, katulad po na sinabi niyo, attorney. So, tapos, syempre, matatakot sila. So, we have to also institutionalize this kind of program. Siguro, kailangan din nating palakasin ang COA para mas mabilis sila makapag-audit kung totoo bang nabigay or nakarating yung mga tulong na ganyan. So, hindi natin siya maiiwasan, pero sa palagay ko, that's only a small factor, and removing altogether naman is also unfair naman for those who really benefit out of these programs. So that's my take on that.
Pero both of you will have to agree, partner, no? Nasa ating pananaw, itong pagbibigay ng ayuda, it actually encourages also patronage politics. Di ba? Kasi parang, and the irony of that is yung pera naman na binibigay nila na pang-ayuda, hindi naman sa kanila. It does not come from the politicians.
Correct.
Ito po ay pera ng taong bayan.
Correct.
Ito po ay pera ng mga negosyante, ng mga nagtatrabaho, na wini-withhold ang kanilang sweldo, kagaya ng mga tao dito sa studio. Di ba? Lahat tayo nagbibigay, nagbabayad ng buwis para guminhawa ang ating kinabukasan, ang ating kabuhayan at matulungan yung mga kailangan ng tulong. Ngunit ang nangyayari dahil nga sa pagbibigay ng ayuda na hindi nakokontrol, di ang nangyayari di ba, nagiging patronage politics. So ang tanong namin siguro dito is that kailangan ba siguro bang talagang tanggalin na lang talaga yan para wala ng patronage politics? Totally take it out?
Yes, Attorney. Until siguro what Attorney Kooky was saying that let's make people accountable, let's hold them accountable. It would take many years to do that, and billions or probably trillions are already wasted by the time that someone, if at all, is held liable. So yes, why not just remove the problem altogether? For peace, it's doled out through ATM, through GCash. It does not go through the politicians or the local government or a person distributing something. It's straight to the recipient, and there's no one to thank for but the national government. Let's remove everything else.
Except the conditional cash transfer.
Yeah, and
Yes.
especially what you said, yung
For
demoralizing lining up.
Yes.
And then, tama ka naman, bakit ka nga magpapasalamat? Pera ng bayan yan. Di ba? Bakit ka bigla may utang na loob dun sa nag-distribute? But very interesting discussion. So for now, we'll have to take a short break. When we return, it's time for final reflections and our closing questions. You're watching Abogado.
Welcome back. Tonight's proposition: should government ayuda programs be discontinued?
Advocating for discontinuation is Attorney Perian Arcega, and advocating against is Attorney Kooky Inciso.
We've examined the long-term implications on poverty and the political risks tied to these programs.
And now we hear our guest's closing reflections. Attorney Arcega, you have 2 minutes.
There's a thing called ideal. There's something that's our reality. Our reality right now is we're very young as a democratic country compared to other countries. And with that amateurism comes our lack of control over our politicians. Democratic system gives the people power to vote for who they want to be in position. But with that power, there's also the possible irresponsibility and the possible manipulation of the people in power. Sobrang laki ng gap ng rich and poor. With that, we are not... I believe that we just have to face the reality that ayuda opens a very big door to corruption. And that's something that we cannot control at the moment. When we become more mature as a country, as a democratic country, really being able to hold accountable the people who are corrupting our system and oppressing the poor, then maybe let's revisit. But for now, we cannot. It's our daily lives. We see politicians taking credit over things that they have nothing to do with. The ayuda, they give out rice, they give out ulam, but it's not really from them, and that they take credit. They put their names there. So until we're more mature, let's just make sure that we are not robbed by these bad politicians. And of course, a caveat there is there are a lot of good politicians, but we have to face the fact that there are bad ones. Just remove entirely the ayuda system, save for a couple, the ones that we need for during calamities as a lifeline, and for peace. I believe we just have to improve and make sure we stay on guard as to the proper implementation, and then we save ourselves billions of money corrupted by these bad politicians.
Thank you. Attorney Inciso, your turn.
I just forgot to also say earlier in my closing that ayuda actually also helps the economy because the assistance that is being given out is also being spent by the people on small businesses. So in a way, it also boosts our economy. So in closing, let us just remember that ayuda does not weaken the state. In fact, as what I said earlier, it shows our strength that we stand for the people. We have compassionate justice. We show mercy. And yes, there are flaws. There are misuse, inefficiency, but these are not arguments against ayuda itself. But this is a call for reform. Let us not abandon the people who are benefiting from the state and the government's well-meaning program. So let us not abandon them. The problem is not that we help the poor. Sometimes we just let some ill-motive politicians steal what is for them actually. And what we need is not less of ayuda, but a smarter, fair, and more accountable system where we can safeguard and make sure that there is proper implementation of these programs and institutionalize, I say, this program so that it will not be handled by local politicians and criterias will be properly set, datas will be the basis for identifying who will be entitled to these programs and not because they are loyal to a particular person or politician.
Thank you, Attorney Inciso. Now, Attorney Mike and I will each ask one question to further draw out your positions. So please keep your responses concise because we're also running out of time. Napaka-interesting kasi na topic.
As always,
so, Attorney Mike, you go first.
Partner. Thank you so much.
What do you want to ask?
Thank you so much, partner. Well, clearly, partner, no, the way I've listened to both arguments, very strong arguments based on data, empirical data, facts, and aspirations, of course. At nakikita natin na talagang inaamin naman natin lahat yata dito na there are certain sectors of our society na talagang kailangan nila ng ayuda. It's just a question nga on anong klaseng ayuda at ano ang mga condition na dapat magampanan at susundan para tuloy-tuloy ang pagbigay ng ayuda. At kung kailan din titigil yon. Kasi hindi naman pwede forever may ayuda. Kaya ang tanong ko ngayon, in your view, do you think that we should change the way ayuda is done by rationalizing it in the sense that it will just be one government agency in charge of dispersing or pagbibigay ng ayuda para una-una talagang na-identify kung sino sila. Pangalawa, talagang kung may mga kondisyones na dapat sundan ay masusunod. Pangatlo, mamamonitor. And pangapat, yung measurement. Kasi ako po'y naniniwala, partner, that nothing successful, no successful program can ever be successful unless ito ay nami-measure. May metrics.
Tama.
So, sa tingin niyo po, mga kompanyeras, sa tingin niyo ba dapat bang ilagay na lang to sa isang government agency to rationalize or pagpatuloy pa rin natin kung anong ginagawa natin ngayon?
Okay. Well, of course, the former. It should just be one agency. As I said earlier, I believe that it should be just for calamities and for peace. I agree, and that's DSWD. They have that mandate, social work. That's their mandate to ensure that everybody's taken care of. So if it's just one national agency, then we can all check it. It's easy to check. It's easy to measure, and wala na yung kung saan-saan na ayuda.
Isn't that DSWD already?
Yes,
that's one
right now.
agency.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Why can't we retain it under DSWD,
That's
under
right.
the current system?
Yeah, I agree.
Your position on that?
Yes, I agree
Panera?
with Attorney Mike. It needs to be just one agency that will really monitor so they can also measure and see the effectivity of the program if there needs to be some amendments or there needs to be some reinforcement. So it really needs to be handled by the national government and avoid it from being localized because I think that's where the problem comes in. It becomes a reward for loyalty. So if it's going to be under DSWD, then we can make sure that they will have certain parameters that will be met before they are actually allocated the assistance that they're supposed to get, and we can screen them properly.
Okay, well, how do we avoid the political problem again? Because even if we concentrate it in one department, one, the budget is granted by Congress because that's the setup of our government, which means that Congress can withhold it or, you know, try to find ways to control the budget in the way they allocate the ayuda programs to favor their own constituents at district
That's
nila.
right.
And then the other thing is with the distribution, pagka hindi ka allied with the administration, technically because the head of the department is appointed by the president, they can withhold it from certain areas that, you know, where the head of those areas, mga mayors nila, ay hindi din kaalyado nung administration. How do we avoid that type of politicking?
I think we can be more, the agency could be more transparent. If they're transparent, then other NGOs can check. Things will come to light. As long as there's just one program. Right now, kasi the SWD has different programs for ayuda. Even the Malasakit Center is from them, the IX, everything's from them. So it's just one, 4-piece. And then the rest tanggalin. And it is transparent, easily checked by the public. Of course, under the freedom of information, under the within the parameters of that. If that's the case, then syempre mahihiya naman siguro yung mga politiko to just interfere in the implementation of the SWD.
Well, Attorney Arcega, since your position is to remove or abolish the ayuda program, particularly yung mga non-conditional types of ayuda, what would be your alternative to it? Saan mo ilalagay yung budget that we save?
Job creations, strengthening the public school system. As I said earlier, we are a product of public schools, elementary and high school. Back then, it's a lot better, they said. They say na right now, it's parang half day na lang. So we strengthen public school system because, of course, manpower, when we have good education that's axiomatic, we have better future. So that and provide permanent jobs. Right now, the job orders of the local government, they're good, pero it's still job order, mga casual employees. So make it more permanent so that people would know that they will get something if they just work harder.
Until that time, we need ayuda. So siguro kung habang wala pang ganon, of course, that is really the ideal society or the ideal framework that everyone will have access to employment opportunities, walang magugutom, pero that's not the reality eh. Hindi yun ang katotohanan na alam naman natin. So, kailangan natin yung ayuda para makatawid man lang sila papunta doon towards that decent life that everyone really deserves.
Well, clearly a very, very engaging as usual partner. No?
Yes.
Talaga namang engaging ang ating discussion today. At it really brings to the fore yung issue nga ng ayuda. At let's just hope that itong issue na ito ay matitignan talaga natin gobyerno to make sure that those who really deserve it gets the help that they need. No? So, Attorney Karen, siyempre, kailangan tanungin kita. No? Ano sa mga, o sino sa dalawang nagsalita ay yung views niya ay nag-resonate talaga sa'yo?
I think, to be fair, it's because of my personal views na inspiring talaga yung ganung story. Na imagine sila naghahati daw sa dalawang fried egg na 6 sila sa pamilya. But we have a lawyer here now, si Attorney Arcega. Kanina pa ako naiilang na tawagin siyang baby. Parang it doesn't do justice yung sa seryoso na
Baby
usapan
Kooky.
natin. But you know, there are 2 statements that resonated with me. One is from Attorney Inciso when she said that ayuda programs should be compassion without corruption.
Yeah.
So we really have to solve that corruption part if we are to retain the ayuda programs. And then from Attorney Arcega, I really like what she said, that the people currently, in the current setup, the people giving the ayuda are your oppressors because they're not giving you so much. They're giving you just a little, but not enough to get you out of that cycle of poverty. So parang may utang ng loob ka pa sa kanila. So yun ang dalawa. Napakagaling ng dalawang lawyers natin. So a wonderful debate that we had today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our heartfelt thanks to Attorney Kooky Inciso and Attorney Perian Arcega for their time and insights tonight.
As the nation moves forward from crisis to recovery, the questions around ayuda reflect deeper tensions between relief and reform, welfare and empowerment. Whatever your stand, one thing is clear: the discussion must be thoughtful, legal, and informed.
That's exactly what Abogado hopes to offer. Join us again next week as we tackle another issue at the crossroads of law and public life.
This is Abogado.
Good night.